I'm going to give you some advice that may make some of you founders that are working on your pitch deck kind of unhappy. But at the same time, I think it's important to share. And I just wrote this down. I wrote, a good pitch deck is no longer good enough, but the right pitch deck at the right time is everything. Let me start by saying the sort of fantasy or the pop culture of startups used to be, or still is, that if you have an idea, put it into a pitch deck and then investors are going to invest. And that might have worked a long time ago. And I'm talking way back in Web 1.0, because it was really hard to create an MVP. These days, everybody can create an MVP. You can create an MVP using spreadsheets. There's stuff, there's low code, there's no code. You can create an MVP using that runs off Microsoft Excel. Everything's on the cloud. WordPress, little apps are all available, different things that can act like apps. And they're just websites and membership things and all that stuff. It's all at your fingertips. So as before, you used to be able to pitch an idea and prove to the investor that you could build it, and they would give you the money to build it. But today, it just isn't the same. So a lot of times, founders will create a pitch deck at the wrong time, and then it's the wrong deck for that particular situation. I've seen founders put pretty much like a business plan, what they intend to do in their pitch deck, and they're surprised, and they shouldn't be, that investors aren't interested. But a good pitch deck is no longer enough. You have to have built something. And I'm talking about institutional capital. I'm not talking about friends, family, and associates that will go and say, okay, I believe in you and I'm ready to YOLO some money. And maybe they got a little bit of FOMO and they know getting in early. And that's going to be the thing, is you're going to be giving up more the earlier you get that investment. But if you don't have something built, then a pitch deck might have a good idea, but an investor's not going to have confidence that you've built something, or they're going to look at all the other investors, all the other founders as investors that have built something, being very scrappy. And that's where I always recommend founders, if you can't build the MVP yourself or on a really shoestring budget, if you have to go hire an entire dev shop, and the cost and what happens at the end of the project, that dev shop is no longer available, then I always question whether or not you're going to have the same chances of success as other people who validated the idea with maybe not as much technical prowess or sophistication, but at least have users and show something that goes into the pitch deck. And not to say that it's, not a good idea to go get a dev shop to build a software MVP. For me, it's just so much harder to do that. So a good pitch deck is no longer good enough. If you have a good pitch deck with a product that you've built and some type of validation, investors are going to want to talk to you a lot more, especially if you have the right level of traction, that growth that shows that you are actually, able to execute. You're de-risking the investment. So a pitch deck really is a communication tool of, here is the status of our company and where we are, not here is the idea that we intend to build, and will you please give us money? That's when the right pitch deck at the right time is everything. Let's say you've got traction and you're building something with validated users and you're making money. Well, the right pitch deck is going to be the challenge, because I see a lot of founders go out there and they've built something and then they start communicating just this huge vision and this total wide-ranging, broad thing about how they're going to change the world, etc. Well, that's not the right pitch deck for the right time in your situation. So what you want to do is be able to communicate that idea very clearly, because most likely your first MVP is wrong. You've barked up the wrong tree. You made some assumptions and they're invalidated. That's okay. In fact, the right pitch deck will communicate the right message of what you've done. And I've seen founders do that. They've been very transparent. And they've said, okay, we spent this amount of money on this, and we learned some lessons, and here's how we adjusted. Here are the new results from the pivot that we've done. That gets investors interested. And founders go, well, that seems counterintuitive because I'm sharing my failure. Exactly. That is counterintuitive, but that's exactly how startup land works. If you start to change the narrative and show that you're gaining insight to demonstrate how capable you are of a founder, that you know how to iterate your business and make major pivots. In fact, a lot of investors just sort of expect the founders to do one big pivot in their history. And that's the reason investors invest in founders, not in ideas. Investors invest in founders who communicate those ideas and execute against those ideas, but also make the changes when necessary. So the complication or the challenge is going to be getting that story crystal clear. This is the one problem that we're solving. This is how our solution is unique. Yes, we've got so many other things that we can do, but this is the one thing, problem solution. This is how we make money. This is what we know about the one thing that other founders or other competition, other startups in the space do not know. That's the right pitch deck at the right time. So let's summarize here. If you are a founder and you are working really hard on creating a pitch deck, but you haven't built anything yet, I highly recommend that you back it up and do what's called an idea. And I'm doing another video on this, and I'll put it out there. What's called an idea validation deck, or an idea deck, or an elevator pitch deck, and validate that first so you know, and then build like a small, really tiny MVP and see if you can make this happen. And like I said, the MVPs are very accessible. I'm working with founders right now who went out and quoted, really big apps and they want to do a software MVP. And I said, how are you going to know that works? Right. And of course, investors don't come to the table because they don't want to take that risk to pay for founders to figure that out. And so when I ask that question, they can't give me any validating data. And I say, how about we start off with one small thing? Let's set you up a website that's mobile friendly, et cetera, that, we can figure some things out and then sell one customer. Like, let's see if we can do that versus build this huge technology stack and have it wrong in the first place. So if you are in that stage and you're in like pre-development or pre-launch, do an idea validation deck, then launch something, and then start building your pitch deck to tell that story to get investors interested, especially tracking user traction and revenue and all those things. By the way, the revenue story is the most important. The most important feedback that you're going to get is sales, is can you make money? And I think a lot of founders miss out on that because that's what investors are looking for, because you're expecting them to give you money, but you're not ready to go out and make money and charge for your product. That's a little janky as far as sort of an entitlement saying, well, you're going to give me money and I'm just going to keep working and not make money. Doesn't work. So making money ideally on day one and seeing what people will pay and what you can charge for it is the great story that then you can put into the right pitch deck with the right messaging, the right story, and just the right amount of content to get investors interested in you. These are the main reasons that investors aren't going to pay attention to your pitch decks, depending on the stage that you're in, but also is the pitch deck, your pitch deck, the right pitch deck for that particular issue? That's going to be the thing that makes or breaks your fundraise. There you have it. So I hope you can receive this information. If you're in a situation, there's always opportunity to change. But if you're in that spot, you're like, oh, I can't believe I should have got this advice, before I put all this right. Don't worry about it. Nothing gets wasted, because part of doing pitch decks is you actually, put your head into the problem and you start to develop your domain expertise and unique insights. And that's going to serve you always in the long run. Don't worry. I've done like dozens of pitch decks for the same company and they haven't worked out, but I've learned a lot about the company at the same time, and then learned a lot about investors and, the entire process of fundraising. Again, hope that helps. Let me know. Keep working on your pitch decks. We are here to help you out, while at the same time, really do consider the advice that I'm giving here, and I'll see you in the next video.